All right, what's up all my plant lovers? Devin is here and we're gonna do a pretty long video today. I think it'll end up being a little bit long because what I wanted to show you guys is how to start our favorite veggie plants. We're gonna start them inside in springtime and then we're going to move them outside when the weather is ready to put them outside. So the veggies that I'm gonna start inside the home are, I got some beautiful red peppers, a couple different tomatoes, some serrano chilies, and some cucumbers. Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, eggplant. Those are pretty much my favorite veggies to grow myself. Particularly, I'm gonna be growing these all in containers. I'm starting them in these small pots and then we're gonna move them outside and transplant them into larger containers. So I wanted to show you guys exactly how to do it step by step by step by step so that you can do it with success when you're ready. So today is, what is today? April 14th, 2022, all right? So I'm gonna probably be posting this to show you guys the entire progression from seed to to a medium-sized plant to actually harvesting, so you can see the entire progress over the course of the season. So this will probably get published next season on my YouTube channel, Plant Vibrations with me, Devin. And anyways, all right, so let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so first and foremost, how did I decide that today was the day to actually start them? So I'm actually going by this beautiful little chart that I'm showing you here. This is in the Farmer's Almanac, planting by the moon phases. So I don't know the whole kind of like science behind it, but if you plant according to this dates, you can easily look at the veggie that you want to grow, look at your region, and it gives you the dates, the best dates to plant them. There's something about the way that the moon is, whether it's in its waxing phase or in its waning phase, that helps your seeds do their very best. I don't really understand, but I'm gonna trust the Farmer's Almanac. They've been helping gardeners for a lot of years, so I'm gonna go with their wisdom. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is that I have these beautiful trays. So basically you have this under tray. This is gonna catch any excess moisture. I'll put links in the description below to my Amazon page where you can find these materials so that you can start your seeds with everything that you need, all right? So I'll make it really easy so you can just go to the Amazon shop, you can find what you need, order it, and then have it delivered to your home. It's super easy like that. So we have the under tray. Then we have this insert tray, which you can see it has holes in it, and I put this just on top. Now I'm gonna be doing an experiment. I'm gonna be testing growing the veggies. I'm gonna grow one of each veggies. I got 8 pots in each tray. So I have 8 different veggies. I'm gonna do one way in these plastic containers. These are all about 3-inch containers, and then I'm gonna transplant them to larger containers when they're ready. And then in the other tray, I'm gonna try these really cool biodegradable pots that are actually, once they're ready to be transplanted, instead of actually taking them out of the pot, we're just gonna plant this entire cup into the new larger container of soil. So I wanna do this little experiment, see which way promotes better growth, all right? So we'll see. Stay tuned and we'll find out which is the winner. All right, first thing you need to do, once you have your seeds, so I have my tomatoes that I've gotten from Totally Tomatoes, totallytomato.com. I have a Black Seaman. I have a Tumbler hybrid, which is kind of like a cherry tomato. Fantastico hybrid, I'm not really sure. These were gifts from my father. He also gave me some big red peppers. Also, he got from Totally Tomato. Then I have some other ones from Baker Seed, which is a great, awesome Baker Seeds. I think it's out of Missouri. Awesome. I think it's a family-run business. and they have really great seeds. You can also find them at Johnny Seeds. Those are some of my favorite areas to get my seeds from, okay? So it's really important you want to write out your labels before you get started so you have them ready and handy. So I put the name of each one. Let's see. Ooh. So you see, I put the name of each one and I put the date that I'm starting them, so that just helps me remember how many days ago I had planted them, okay? So what I like to do, I like to start with a nice kind of big Tupperware kind of thing like this with, this is fresh potting mix. I'm not using like seed starting mix. This is just kind of just really high quality potting mix. And what I like to do, I actually like to pre-moisten it. I find that this is pretty easy. So I have it, I add some water, then I start to stir it up. Now it's really important that you make sure the entire soil mix is totally moist. I find that this way is easier to do than actually watering on, after you place the seed, then you water it in, because then sometimes the seed can get displaced, and I find that this way is just a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit more water. It really does want to be nice and moist, but not like sopping wet. Because the thing is that once we actually plant the seeds in, we're going to cover them with these plastic covers like this. And we're not going to water it again until you actually see them sprouting, all right? So it's really important, you want to make sure that 100% of this soil mix is moistened. So if I grab a handful and I squeeze it, you can start to see that there is water coming out, but I gotta actually put some force into it. So that's kind of a really good indicator. You wanna be able to squeeze, you wanna be able to put it in your hand and let it stay in your hand, and you can squeeze it, and it's not like the soil isn't like slurping, like gushing through your fingers. That would be too wet. Then you would wanna add some more soil to kind of level it out. But it's also not dry, so that so dry that you can't actually put it in your hand as a ball. So this is a really good kind of the hand indicator test. Grab it, squeeze it, and if it stays in your hand, maybe a little will fall off just like that. That's okay. And you can see the water coming down, dripping out. That's perfect. All right. So I like to have everything in order, everything really nice and ready. Whenever I'm doing things like this, I always think of who is it? Ford, Henry Ford. He was the master of like the assembly line. So I think that's definitely helps. Have all of your materials ready. Oh yeah, and on the labels for these biodegradable pots, I put a star on the back just to help me remember once I transplant it, I won't actually be able to see these anymore. So the star is going to help me to remember which ones were in those biodegradables. Anyways, that's kind of a personal note. So now we just go ahead and start filling them up. So what I like to do, I like to fill it up pretty much all the way and then just kind of give it a nice gentle pat down, all right? Just like that. That should be perfect. Give yourself a little bit of a lip, that's, what is that, a 1/2 inch lip from the top of that soil to the top of the plastic, you can see. So that's pretty perfect. All right, so now I have all the pots filled with the pre-moistened soil. I put the labels in. Now I have my chopstick that's gonna help me make the perfect size hole. Now each of the seed packets will basically tell you the depth that the seed should be planted in. And typically it's around 1/4 of an inch deep. So I'm just going around and putting a small little hole in every single one of these, in the soil of each one of these pots. Now you can see my voice is disconnected from my mouth, and that's because I had the silly idea that I would forget to turn the microphone on during this part. So I've gone back and I'm doing a voiceover currently, but that doesn't matter. So you can see, just real quickly, put a small little hole to drop the seeds into every one of those pots. Now make sure that your pots are all labeled perfectly. So now we want to gently take the seeds out of the packets. They're going to be really small. Each of the different kinds of veggies has a different size seed, so just be careful when you're doing that. Look, you can see just how teensy tiny they really are. So what I'm actually going to be doing, I'm going to be planting 2 into each pot. So now we're just going to gently drop the seeds into the correctly labeled pot, and then we're kind of just brush the soil back on top of the seeds just so they're lightly covered. You don't need to like push them in there deep or anything like that. Now just go through to each one of your containers and gently put them in there. So the microphone is still off. But what I'm gonna do now is lightly water just a tiny little bit. This is really gonna help to ensure that the seeds settle into their spot so the seeds are absolutely covered with moisture all the way around, because that is what is actually going to kind of wake your seeds up and tell them that, all right, we're in some soil, we're nice and moistened, let's start to do something. All right, so now we're gonna grab our plastic clear coverings. Now, these are clear because we want light to still penetrate and reach the top of that soil, so that's really important. And we're going to lightly put them on top of those plastic trays. There's gonna be just a small little gap that's gonna allow any kind of airflow to occur naturally, but it's also gonna be retaining as much humidity as possible. And that's really important because we do not want our seeds to dry out while they're sprouting. That would cause irregular growth and not be good. All right, so here we are at my heat pad. You can see it's been getting some work out of it, but that's okay, that's perfect. And now, so I have my contraption, my tray with my lid on. I put it here, and I want to have my grow light no more than 6 inches away. Ideally, I think I'll go find another grow light and add it in so we have 2 providing light for these plants. The more light is better, absolutely, and definitely no more than 6 inches away. As a side note, while I was planting my seeds, what I found was that my dad gave me some empty seed packets. 2 of the tomato varieties I was hoping to grow didn't have any seeds in it. Just called him and he's like, oh, I gave you those as a reference. Like, awesome. I thought you gave them me as a reference with seeds in them. Anyways, so now I have planted 6 plants of the tomato black seaman. So supposedly it's a good one, so I'm not worried. But anyways, in case you're wondering later in the journey. All right, so the next step, we'll be back once they start sprouting. Quick side note, you know, if you're hoping to have 5 tomato plants this summer, plant 7. Germination rate is not always 100%, so it's always better to plant a couple extra than you actually want. And if they do all work, then awesome, give one away. So that's a quick side note. Anyways, we'll be back soon. All right, guys, today's April 22nd, so that makes this day 8 since I planted those seeds. It gets me every single time. Seeds, cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, they just grow so fast. So I wanted to give you an update on where we're at after 8 days. Here you can see a lot of them have already started to sprout. Okay, so what I'm basically doing, so at first you remember I started, both had their lids on it, but as they have begun to sprout, of course, I need to take the lid off. So I'm mixing up these 2 trays of the ones that haven't quite sprouted enough for me to take off the lid versus the ones that have sprouted and need that extra room to grow. So let's take a look. All right, so you can see these cucumbers are by far the biggest ones so far. So I've had 4 of the tomatoes and 4 of the cucumbers sprout high enough that, you know, I had to take them out. So you remember I planted 2 in each. Look, you can see 2 plants. I planted 2 seeds, 2 plants. 2 seeds, 2 plants. 2 and 2. Oh, this guy only had a 50% germination rate, just one of them. We got 2 there. We got 2 there. Looks like we got 3 there. Maybe I accidentally did 3 there. And then we got 2 there. So if you've ever heard of the word cotyledon, Cotyledons are the first leaves that appear. They're not true leaves. They're not the actual leaves. This is not an actual tomato leaf per se, but they are the first leaves, and they will basically, their function is to trap sunlight now to provide enough energy to produce the true leaves coming on here in a little bit. So after a while, the true tomato leaves will start to form. The cotyledons will kind of fall by the wayside. You won't even notice them anymore. So if you're wondering why those don't look like a traditional tomato leaf, that is why. Now as we move into this tray, you can see the peppers are just getting started. Tomato that only has one guy, one pepper there. This orange blaze has not started yet. Let's see what we've got over here. Orange blaze hasn't started. I guess the orange blazes are definitely the slowest. That would be the orange bell pepper. Or no, I guess, yeah, orange bell pepper. All right, so we're gonna continue to keep these ones covered for the time being. And this tray over here will remain uncovered. So we'll continue to watch them, grow them. Now that they've sprouted, they need to be watered pretty much every day. And when you are watering, it's really important to go nice and gently. Best to pick it up and just kind of go around the outside, moisten it in its entirety, all right? Hugely important not to let your new seedlings dry out because that will cause them to undergo stress that they do not, they're still little babies. We gotta coddle the little babies. We know that, all right? Now, as my experiment continues with the biodegradable pots versus the plastic pots, you know, they both pretty much have, they're kind of neck and neck in terms of growth. The one thing that I've noticed absolutely is that these biodegradable ones do dry out much faster. Of course, because the sides are like a paper kind of consistency, evaporation is occurring out of the edges of the containers, whereas with our plastic containers, the moisture is held much more intact. So that is definitely one of the first things I've noticed, and that is not something that I like. I would rather have the moisture stay intact rather than dry out more rapidly because, like I was just saying, we don't want our little babies to dry out too quickly, all right? So we're gonna continue to take care of them, continue to watch them grow and mature, and probably the next time we will revisit is when they are ready to transplant to the larger containers and hardening them off, all right? So we'll be back here in, I don't know, a couple weeks, all right? All right, so the cucumbers, they are ready to be hardened off. The tomatoes and peppers, not quite there yet. It has been a total of, what is it, 18 days since I planted the cucumber seeds, and now they're ready to be hardened off. So I'll show you guys where I'm actually gonna be hardening off these cucumbers. Now the reason why hardening off is so important, you have to acclimate your seedlings, your plants, to the outdoor conditions, the changes in temperature, the wind, all sorts of stuff like that. And actually what happens when you're hardening off, the cells will actually become thicker and tougher of your plants. That's why they call it hardening off. And the really important thing to note though, when you are doing that, all of these, oh no, all of these plants, they really need to stay in temperatures basically above 55 is like the real low end of the spectrum. So the nights need to be above that 55-degree threshold before you're able to actually put them outside to allow them to harden off. So for me, it's about that time. You know, the nights are staying about that temperature. So these guys are ready to start that phase. Now it's all, the other thing is after we're doing the hardening off, we'll harden them off for a few days and then we'll transplant them into the larger containers. So you really need to make sure that those days are going to be warm and basically because once you transplant them, they're gonna wanna grow, they're gonna start to grow. So definitely your weather needs to be ready and prepared for them to grow. All right, so let's show you guys where I'm actually gonna be leaving these for now. Okay, so I'm on my front porch and my front porch is totally covered. Let's see, can we see that? Totally covered. So any rainfall, these are going to be free and clear from the rainfall. It also has, you know, we have kind of like the side walls here. so it's gonna be pretty damp from the wind as well. This is really the ultimate conditions because also this is north facing, so it doesn't get any direct sunlight. They're always going to be in the shade. So basically what you wanna consider is you wanna have them in shade, you wanna keep them away from very windy conditions, and you want to keep them out of potential rainfall because you don't want them to get flooded. Rainfall might injure them as well. So those are kind of the things that you want to think of, and that temperature range, all right? So those are all like the 4 main things you need to think about when we're actually hardening them off. So I'm gonna leave them here. Leave my babies out overnight tonight, and should be good. All right, today's the day. My seedlings have been hardening off for the last 3 days. It's ready to get them planted up. So today is May 12th. Mother's Day was just a couple days ago. And if you remember, I started the seedlings on April 14th. So basically, from the day I started the seeds to the moment that I'm planting them up into their larger containers to stay out all summer, about a month, all right? So that's pretty good timeline to keep a good framework in your mind, all right? So let's take a look. The cucumbers are absolutely taking off. These guys are huge. They want to get in a pot much bigger. Ooh, yeah, they're really starting to grow. All right, let's take a look. You can see some of my tomatoes and my peppers. I think I actually have, you know, almost 100% germination rate, which is amazing. I think I was planning on like a 90% germination rate, so I think I actually have like a couple extra plants that I'm not even gonna have room to plant it up, but that's okay. So I guess the tomatoes, and let's see, if you want to take a look at how they're comparing, the tomatoes in these 3.5 plastics look really great versus in these biodegradable ones. I think they actually look better in the plastic, I gotta admit. The peppers are definitely the slowest ones to have gotten started, but they look pretty good in these biodegradable ones and about the same in the plastic. And it's pretty much the same story with the cucumbers. They look more or less neck and neck. All right, so I got my pots all set up in the sunniest location in my garden. It's kind of a weird spot, but you know, when it comes to eating fresh homegrown veggies, you put them wherever the sun is gonna be its longest and hottest in your garden. So we forget about the garden design with regards to our veggie plants, and we just put it where the sun is gonna shine. All right, so here's the setup I got going on. I got 6 large 24-inch containers. You can see there's the plants, here's my patio, and you know, I have a hose that basically comes over there. I can fill up this large 3-gallon watering jug every day and just go easily water it. That's what I'll be doing. I also have another hose that comes from my garage, so I have 2 ways of being able to water these guys. That's huge. You gotta have good access to water if you're growing fruits and veg. So you can see these containers are pretty large. They're 24-inch containers. And then what I'm using, I got this 6-pack of stakes. You know, I built them, you put them together yourself. I bought them on Amazon, 6 packs for like 30 bucks. They're what, 4 feet tall. So these are gonna be perfect. Now, what I'm gonna be doing in each of these containers is I'll be putting, you know, I'll put 2 tomatoes in each, 2 peppers in each, 2 cucumbers in each. So I'm gonna put 2 plants in each of these containers. It's really the only way to do it. You know, if you have more space for more containers, that's great. But if you wanna have a good yield and not, you know, take up your entire yard with your fruit and veg plants, well, you gotta really kind of be efficient in how you're planting them, all right? Okay, so if you remember, the cool thing about these biodegradable ones is you can actually just plant it right in there. Now, I'm using stakes for everything. Cucumbers, they want to climb. Tomatoes, they need support. And the peppers, they'll just benefit by a little extra support, just generally speaking. So that's why I like to use stakes in everything. And when it comes to planting out, so keep your tag, you can put it off to the side for now. These are these long Japanese style cucumbers. I'm just gonna kind of plant it right in the corner. Super easy. It feels really kind of cool planting it in this biodegradable thing because it's just like, you just pop it in nestle it down. And it's kind of situated by the corner of that stake. So that's really easy. Now the type of soil I'm using, I'm just using a bagged potting mix. It's like the black gold all-purpose potting mix. It's pretty expensive these days, like 20 bucks for 2 cubic feet, but it's really nice and rich and full of good stuff. So I planted one on the inside of this little staking mechanism, and this one I'm going to plant just on the outside, just so they can kind of be spaced well in the container. And once it starts climbing, I'll absolutely kind of help situate it so it's climbing along these stakes. Now you can rest assured you'll be needing to water these pretty much every single day unless you're getting good rain. So just be prepared for that. If you have trips coming up like I do, find someone that you trust to go, you know, if not every day, every other day for sure. And then just water it in. Now what I like to do, you can kind of try to like start situating them so that they're growing all kind of around these different edges of these stakes, so that when they are really starting to grow, they'll naturally cling onto the stakes. Like the cucumbers are so good about doing that. So that's what I love about them. All right, we got one planted. All right, so here you can see the roots of my tomato plant. Honestly, I would have liked if it was even more root bound. It's really, you know, you'll get the best growth if your plants are really well root bound before you transplant them. So this is a little bit disheartening, but I'm gonna plant it up anyway because I gotta get them in there. I gotta get it in. Now, if you'll remember from basics of growing tomatoes, the original soil line right here, when it comes to tomatoes, you wanna plant it actually like an inch deeper than that original soil line. What that does, tomatoes are great because they'll actually root in that extra stem space that you plant further down. So, plant these guys a little bit deeper. I really don't even need to break up those roots because they're they're kind of delicate. We want to keep them all on the inside of these stakes because they're going to need that support. If you're having trouble getting it out of the pot, just sort of go around the sides, loosen it up, and it should come out nicely. And I like to have the stakes situated in before I plant them, just because, you know, that makes it can be more challenging if you have to put the stakes in after, because what if you accidentally plant your plants in the area where you want the stakes to go? So if you have the stakes in first, that can be helpful. All right, so I got everything planted up. It's looking good. I added a couple little marigolds into a couple of these planters just because I had them lying around. I figured why not? Hopefully it doesn't mess with the root system of the veggies, but I think it should be okay. So the next step will be to water them every day, keep my eye on them, and in maybe a week or so, I'll probably start to fertilize them. And once it is time to start fertilizing, I'll come back and show you guys how I like to fertilize my veggies as they're growing. All right, now the fun begins. Okay, so today is June 23rd. It's been about a month since the last update, so I wanted to show you guys where our veggie plants are standing, how they're looking. You can see they're getting pretty tall. Tomatoes are taller than me. Cucumbers, I've been wrapping them all around so that they're nice and full. And you know, as the days get longer, they've been getting longer and warmer, you'll see this rapid growth. So at this time, I'm absolutely watering them pretty much every single day that doesn't rain. Very, very important. I was gone for 3 days, came back, my plants were all dried. They were like looking sad, dry. And so, you know, thankfully They can handle getting like that, like once in a while, but if you let them get consistently overly dry, not only is that going to really affect your yield, it's going to affect the flavor, just the general health of the plant will diminish. So what I've been doing pretty much every 2 weeks or so is I've been using this is called Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. And what I have here is a concentrate, and basically you mix it with water in a spray bottle. And I've been applying it to the fronts and the backs of my leaves as well as possible, once every 2 weeks. You can do that for a maximum of about 6 times during the growing season. So that's, 3 months, that's about as long as you would need to do it. And after, it's really important because I'll show you guys here in a second, there's definitely damage of bugs. That's, par for the course. You really can't get around it. I have noticed aphids. I've noticed some of these little beetles, things that I can like physically pluck off with my hands. And when I notice these things, I'll go and try to spray this pretty soon thereafter, and it does a lot of good. So it's something that you need to just keep as a part of your, basically your own personal, we call it integrated pest management system. For veggies, they are loved by insects just like they're loved by us. So keep that in mind. You can see over here, the peppers are a little bit slower. It's been a little bit of a not chillier, but like not super hot late spring. So they definitely need hot weather in order to grow. Now let's show you guys where things are standing. We've been harvesting. So today is June 23rd. Like I was saying, I've been harvesting cucumbers for about 2 weeks now. That's so fast. By around June 10th, I was harvesting my very first cucumbers. Now I'm harvesting just about every single day. So let's see where things are standing. Now, if you can remember, I planted 2 different kinds of cucumbers in here. This guy is this beautiful long Japanese style. That's pretty much fully grown. That's about 8 inches tall, 8 inches long, I should say. And then I also had planted these, they're called the Artist Hybrid. And that's pretty much, it's like the perfect snacker size cucumber. That's pretty perfect as well. So you can see there are just tons of baby cucumbers all over the place. Some at all different stages. So that's a cool thing about cucumbers is they really produce a lot. And cucumbers are so expensive right now. So it is absolutely amazing to have them growing. They're very easy. Of the 3, cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers, I would say the cucumbers have been by far the easiest and most rewarding. Now over here in the tomato side of things, you can see these guys are really tall. And if you remember, I had purchased these really nice kind of like staking systems that I got off of Amazon, like a 6-pack for 30 bucks. And what I love about them is that you can basically take these things, clip them on. You can basically take them off and then clip them back on. And that fact that I can move them on and off has been huge, because as these are growing, a lot of the new growth has found its way kind of like outside of the barrier. So I can unclip it, kind of push the tomato stems back inside that barrier, and then they have the support. If you're using like those traditional metal ones that have no kind of movability, you can get trapped with having stems that are outside of the fence cage thing. And then, once they get taller and heavier and full of fruit, they will definitely flop over. So if I'll definitely put a link to this in my Amazon shop. So if you want these, get them. They're great, good at price, and you can use them over and over from year to year. And just down here, you can see my very first tomato is just getting started. A cute little guy, a little plumper. And I have tons of wonderful flowers over here. Now, just on the other side of these plants, you can see I have a butterfly bush, and it's not super far away from the rest of my garden. So I have some pretty good pollinator action happening all the time. So that's really important. You got to have some pollinator friendly plants around your fruits and veggies in order to get the best harvest. Because if you don't have pollinators pollinating your flowers, then it's not going to, the flowers aren't going to allow the fruit to form. And then last but not least, these little pepper guys are just starting to bud up. Let me show you real close. All right, so here you can see these are all the little flowers just getting started. Soon they'll open and then make way for some peppers to get growing. So, you know, potentially every single one of these flowers can be a fruit. So basically when it comes to actually harvesting, it's really kind of, you know, for the cucumbers it's pretty easy. You just pick them as they look ready. And, you know, just like this, just take your hands, pluck it right off. There you go, check this baby out. And if you're not sure, maybe you think, okay, it could have grown a little bit more, a little bit longer. Well then, on the next few, let them grow longer and see if they continue to grow. And it's just kind of a trial and error, but you'll find that the flavor is delicious, it's crunchy. And then with the tomatoes, we're not quite at harvest time yet. So once we get to that point, we'll take another look. And then of course, our peppers still have a little ways to go. All right, until next time, I'm gonna go make maybe a cucumber butter mayonnaise sandwich, vegan sandwich, perhaps. All right, so I want to show you guys real quick how I like to fertilize. It's super easy. So I have this granular tomato kind of like vegetable fertilizer. It has all the macronutrients, micronutrients that our veggie plants will want. Something my family offers and sells. You can find it online. I can leave a link for it, but it's really easy, you know, easy instructions. You just put a tablespoon, so like a normal kitchen spoon per gallon of water that you'll be using. And this is a 3-gallon watering pail. So I'll add 3 spoonfuls and I just kind of eyeball it, honestly. So I always like to add the fertilizer first and then use kind of like a heavy spray, and then it will naturally like mix it into the watering pail, so it's all nice and evenly distributed. And then once you have your nice fertilizer mix, you just water your plants naturally. Give them a nice watering in. It's really that easy. I'll do this about once every 2 weeks, beginning of the month and middle of the month, or whenever I think about it, honestly. But it is very, very important. Your veggies need to be fertilized regularly while they're actively growing. And so if you had noticed in the previous part that my tomato plant was getting a little bit tall, a little bit lopsided, and the stakes were no longer giving it the right support, well, I had some old like PVC pipe, I guess, in the shed, and I cut it just using like a little saw and gave it some extra height, some extra support. So now the tomato is getting the support that it needs. So use whatever you have. You can be branches from trees, anything that gives the right height, and then just using some twine, some tape, whatever you might have around the house to just kind of secure them in place. So that's what I did today. Okay, so today is, what's today? Today is July 11th, and this part of the video is super important. You can see a lot of my little tomatoes, or actually big tomatoes, are getting started. They're just small, but maybe you can tell from the last video, I have eliminated a lot of the excess girth within this plant. Why? It was actually, you know, I had been waiting to do it, waiting for the right time, but nature called and told me, all right, time to do it the other day, when I woke up and both of my tomato plants that had gotten super top heavy had fallen over in the night and were laying flat on the ground. So I did it. I did the majority of the pruning that day, but I wanted to show you guys basically what you need to do in order to keep your tomato plant healthy and not overly heavy. So as your plant is growing and it starts to fill out with all these nice fruit, there are going to be some smaller stems that are, you know, probably not going to be capable of holding fruit, probably don't produce flowers, and we need to remove a lot of that, or else it will get very bushy, very heavy. It's going to decrease the light, or decrease the amount of light that can get to those tomatoes, which is going to impede the ripening process. It's also going to decrease airflow, which is very important. Tomatoes need great airflow all the way to the interior of the plant. So what we need to do periodically is go and just kind of remove some of the extra foliage, extra branching that may be taking place. It's really just kind of like you just start and you just keep going, looking for new opportunities. Of course, you can get suckers, which I'll show you here right now what a sucker looks like. So you can see right here, this little growth that's occurring right there, kind of in that elbow section. That is a sucker that's just starting. Obviously, it's best to get these while they're young, but you will find them, you probably won't be able to get them all. So if they do start to grow, those are some of the most easy kind of low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that you always want to cut out. But along with those, you know, sometimes you just gotta go and you just gotta start to remove some stuff that might not be looking so good. Especially plants that might, or some of the leaves in the very interior, probably not going to support much fruit growth. Now my plant is a little bit of a tangled mess, so it's a little bit of just kind of experimentation. Now, you never want to remove more than like a third of the branches and foliage at one time. It's going to be overly stressful. So you can kind of do it over the course of a week or two. It is definitely, as your plant's just getting started, maybe in the first like 6 weeks, it's a little bit hard to do this because you don't know where is going to be the strong point. So once it gets to this stage where it's nice and full and bushy, that's when you just start to kind of remove foliage that looks extra. It's really kind of like, you know, grower's choice, trial and error, that sort of thing. I know that gives new gardeners a lot of anxiety at times, but all you can do is learn by experience, and what's the worst that can happen is maybe you'll take off a little bit, maybe you'll accidentally cut a branch off that has a little tomato, which that happened to me yesterday. Big deal. I got another, 20 or 30 on here growing. So, it's par for the course, all right? So just ensure that you are trying to remove some of the extra foliage to let the important areas really prosper, all right? All right, the day has come. Time to pick our very first of these nice heirloom tomatoes. Look at this guy. There's one here and there's another right here. Now today is July 22nd, just to give you an update on where we are in the timeline. And how do you know when your tomatoes are ripe? Well, pretty much just take your fingers, take your hands, and give it a nice little squeeze. If it feels like it would be nice between your teeth, nice and juicy, and then that is the cue. It's time to pick. This is the black semen, if you can remember. And so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go inside, give it a nice wash, cut it up, put a little salt, maybe a little pepper, and eat it right up and fresh while it's still warm. Remember, never put your ripe tomatoes in the refrigerator. That is going to absolutely take all of the flavor away from it. So you need to allow them, keep them on your countertop or eat them right away. That's when the flavor is at its highest, all right? So a little update on the peppers. You can see a lot of the peppers are just now getting going. So I'm gonna let these continue to go a little bit further, a little bit longer, and continue to develop in their size before we start picking them. So that'll be the next update once the peppers are ready. Oh my goodness, it's already September. Finally, the peppers are starting to turn colors. The Serrano peppers, you can see they're, you don't need to let them turn to the nice orange color. They're definitely, tasty and hot when they're green. But let's see, some of my other bell peppers are just starting to turn colors. And you can see the tomato plants are pretty much done. Cucumbers have long since been finished. So when it comes to peppers, they are a little bit more finicky in terms of the weather that they need in order to fully ripen. They definitely take longer than the cucumbers and the tomatoes. And if it gets too hot, which we've had like a month of really hot weather, that kind of inhibits their ability to fully ripen. So now that it's getting a little bit cooler in the daytimes, like it's in like the 80s in the daytime and the 60s in the night rather than the 90s and the 70s, now they should finally have their chance to fully develop and turn color to the red and the orange that I planted. So now if you're growing peppers and you're just waiting for them to change from green to reds or oranges or yellows, whatever you may be growing, be patient. It can take quite long. And sometimes people ask me, you know, I'm growing red bell peppers, why are they green? All peppers start green, and then just during the process of development, they take on those new hues. Anyways, I think this is going to conclude this long video. I started this back in April. It's now September. So I think that, you know, it's jam-packed full of good information that if you're growing veggies from seeds for the first time, maybe you will have learned something. Maybe you will have gained a little bit of confidence that you can, in fact, do it. All right? Anyways, if you have your own experiences growing veggie plants in your garden, whether it's in raised beds, containers, right in the ground, whatever, please leave some comments below. I love hearing all of your stories and experiences because it teaches me so much and it helps this plant community continue to grow. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me here on Plant Vibrations. I will catch you guys soon. Ciao.